is a piece that I made last year. And that's a sterling silver cowgirl. Pierced out and then cold connected onto the antler or whatever that is. All right, so if you're going to saw out a picture, okay, you can start from the end and saw it out. But if you want to do something where it's got details that are totally inside the piece, that's called piercing. Now, when you're looking at a piece and you're going to saw it out, this is one of my students is doing 3 little rabbits, and so she wanted me to do one of the rabbits. If she wants to save the negative, because what the piece I'm going to cut out is the positive, the stuff around it is the negative. So if you're smart, when you pierce out the inside, you do it in a way that you can save the outside and use it for something else. All right. So when you're looking at a piece, you look at it and you think, where in there would I be able to put a hole that wouldn't be noticeable? So like you wouldn't want to put a hole right in the center of his belly, because then you wouldn't be able to use the positive, but you wouldn't want it to really stand out on the outside area either, because then you couldn't use the negative. So normally I'll look at, if like it's a horse, I'll look at like the mane or the tail, because I can take a little bit off of that and it doesn't matter. For this little guy here, I would probably go in and I would put a hole where his little toe is. Now in my room, I would use a really, really small drill bit, all right? But for out here, I'm just gonna use a hole punch wire, and this is a 1.25, which is the equivalent of an 18 gauge wire. So I'm gonna come in here and just put a little hole where his toe is, okay? And then for this, I thought I'd do this sparrow, because it's a little easier to see. Hopefully I kept this big enough. And I found it's easier, rather than drawing, like if I have a stencil, rather than doing the inside of the stencil, I'll make a copy of the stencil, cut it out, and then glue that on. That way, I don't lose any of my detail trying to trace it out, and it just stays on there better, okay? So, and I never cut it right up against the picture either. I leave it bigger. Because if you cut it right up against the picture, you're more likely to lose your image while you're sawing. And marker will go away before you're finished sawing. I don't know if it's just my sweaty hands or what, but it seems like the whole image disappears before I'm finished. Some people will copy out on like packing labels because they're adhesive, and they'll put their images on packing labels. That works as well. It's a little bit of a thicker material. I just usually use a copy. Whoa, nice. Yay. Okay, so I've got that on there. Okay, and this one is 22 gauge. Okay, and this one's 24 gauge. And the thicker the metal, actually, if it's got a little bit more thickness to it, it's easier to saw. The thinner you get, the more the metal wants to bend with you while you're working. Okay, so with this little sparrow, I would have the this inside part here that I would cut out, and then I would have the little eye. Well, the eye is so small, I could just use my puncher. If I had a bigger drill bit, I would do that. That's plenty for his eye. And then I'll come in here. Where would be the best spot? That would be probably right there. Okay. And if I wanted to use the negative of this sparrow, then I would make sure that I find a spot on him that wouldn't make any difference really. So I'll go here on this end of his tail. Okay. Now, I could just saw in from the outside, but then I couldn't ever use this. I could saw in from the outside, but I could never use the little rabbit. This saw blade, and you can buy a $10 saw frame, or you can buy a $150 saw frame. The saw frame's not as important as the blade, all right? So you want to get good blades. I get medium grade blades, and I always use Swiss blades. This saw blade here I've been using since last week.
Show off.
Okay? Yeah, and now I'll break it. I'll break it because I said that. So let's do the little rabbit. I'll do the sparrow first, because this is kind of hard for you guys to see. So I went with the bigger one here. So instead of coming in from the outside, I'm going to open it. Now the haymaker is made by Christopher Anderson. It's sold through Pepe, and it is a new saw to me. So I'm still just getting used to it. I usually use just your plain old black handled German saw. Or I use my Green Lion, but my Green Lion has gotten a groove in it where you tighten it, and I'm having a hard time getting my blades to go in tight. So when you're putting a blade in, you want that when you run your finger from the handle up, you feel the teeth, okay? So down it's smooth, up you feel the teeth, because it cuts on the downstroke. A right-handed person saws counterclockwise. A left-handed person saws clockwise. All right, so I'm always going to start on the right and saw around. If you go the other way, it's just awkward. Okay. The other thing is, what size saw blades do you use? I don't really go by what gauge metal I'm using as much as how much detail there is. So if there's a lot of detail, like hair, like I do these little zombies, and they've got ragged jeans and stumps for arms and all, I'll go with a 5/0. And what that means is on 1 millimeter thick, so 1 millimeter, there are 5 teeth touching that millimeter. So for this one, I'm using a 3/0. So that means there are 3 teeth in 1 millimeter of space on here. Now, in a perfect circumstance, I would be lowered, and this would be about armpit height. All right? The standard jeweler's bench is 32 inches tall, and that's so you don't lean and hump over. The first misconception most people have is that it's metal, I've got to push real hard. It's the opposite. So I always tell everybody it's cocktail hour, pinky out. Okay? So you want just a really light grip, and you want your wrists to be loose. So we're going to come in here, and the hardest part is usually the first cut. It's a little easier when you're piercing because you're already in the metal. But if I'm on the outside, I usually have a little indentation in my wood, and I start in the wood and I bend it to the side, and that first cut is at an angle, and then I go in. All right? So we make our first cut. All right? And now in my head, this is no longer a saw blade, it's a sewing machine. And I go up and down. And you notice I have my peace sign here. I keep my finger behind where I've already sawed, and I keep my finger in front. That keeps everything tight and flat against the bench pin. If you let the piece go up and down with you, then it's harder to hold. Okay, one mistake I've made here already is I should have started on the inside. Getting ahead of myself. Why should I start on the inside? Because it gives me more metal to hold on to. So if you've got a piece that's got a lot of detail on the inside, like I gave some samples of some things here that I would saw out, I would do all that inside sawing and then do the outside. That way I have a more solid piece that's not going to want to go up and down with my saw blade. So I've got the inside here, and I'm just going to go around. Okay? And like I said, this is an old saw blade, so it's got lots of wax on it already. When I put wax on, I put it on the back. Okay? So here we go, and now you see I'm at a position where I need to turn. To turn, you have to create a space. You can't just turn, or your blade will warp. You have to create a space in your metal that will turn inside of. All right? So that's why you hear all my people said, I'm going to say in march in place, march in place. All right, so here's my sewing machine needle. It's going up and down, and now I don't want to go forward as I march in space because I want that small footprint. So I lean back just a little bit as I march in place. And because this is a sewing machine, I don't pick the sewing machine up and turn it. I turn the fabric. Okay? So now I'm ready to go forward again. Used to doing demos, so I tend to go a little faster than most people. But here I'm going to tilt back. I'm going to move the metal while I make that little space. And then I'm off to the races again. Now this is a gradual turn. So what I can do is I can keep it going. But notice I move the metal. My saw frame doesn't move a whole lot. Now it's not stiff, I don't want you to think that. But I move the metal a whole lot more than I move. Okay, now I have that hole there. I don't want that hole to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and kind of go around it to make it look like it's part of the burr. Okay, I take this off, pull that out, and I'm feeding it in from the back so that I can see my image. I put it inside.
How often do you wax?
I go by the sound and I go by the feel. So normally on a piece this big, I'll usually wax it like twice. Okay. I like wax better than Burr Life. I'm one of those people that doesn't like dust and stuff. When Burr Life gets white stuff everywhere, it's actually a really good. It's actually a really good lubricant. It works really well. I just can't stand it flaking all over the place. You can use, if you're desperate, you can use a bar of soap. You can use a candle. I put my wax, if you notice, on the back of my piece. That way, when I'm sawing and I'm getting a little puddle of sawdust, of metal dust in front of my blade, if I have my wax up there too, it's catching that dust and it's clogging up my picture, and then I can't see where I'm going. A lot of mine are really small and in detail, and then I can't see where I'm going. So if I put the wax on the back, that blob of wax is behind me, not where I'm going. So I'm going to march in place, and there I go. All right. In the pancake dies for the Potter hydraulic press, and I said I wasn't interested in them, and they couldn't figure out why. And I said, because I can saw it out faster than you can load that thing up, crank it up, pop it out, get it out of the die, and cut the edge off and do it. I can saw it out faster than that. And so he didn't believe me, so we had to have a contest.
I hope the stakes were high.
Huh?
I hope the stakes were high.
No, well, bragging rights with somebody who thought he knew everything. So we just took one of the pancake dies, we made me a copy of it, and we both had our metal ready to go, and then we went at the same time, and I finished way before he did. Something to pump out just a regular little shape, you know. Plus, this is what I enjoy doing. I like challenging myself to see what I can do. People know if they take my class, they're going to have to learn to saw. They'll come up to me with a piece and I'll go, "You used your shears, didn't you?" And they go, as you can tell, especially if you plan on soldering something on it later, it'll be warm. And notice I'm keeping this really, really close to the board. If you're out here and it flops up and down, you're going to break your blades. I see a lot of people, we have the wedged bench pins in the classrooms, and they have the wedge going in a downward motion. That's backwards. That's for filing. The flat one's for sawing. If you're sawing on that downward slope, you've already got your wrists like this before you ever start. And that's just uncomfortable, okay? And try to stay straight. Try not to hunch over. And you notice I'm hardly holding his handle at all. Okay, see, it's getting sticky. It's getting a little stiff. It's time to put some more on. This blade I have in here is a 3/0. Space. And then what I would do with this is I would probably come in here and just saw this around the outside here, probably about that deep, and then I'd have like a silhouette ring of it, okay? And then I'm not wasting all of this silver. By that, what I mean is I would come in here and notice how I'm pushing it on my stomach. What I'm doing is, see how I'm putting it in a bind? And when it's in a bind, then I tighten it, and then when I let it go, it's nice and tight, okay? So, I'm a sticker. I don't like to waste silver. I use every little bit of it, because I don't know about y'all, but money's precious to me, and hard to come by. So what I do is I come in here. This is my widest area, so that's how much I can leave. So I come in here. If your saw blade's not tight enough, you're not going to have any success. You notice it sounds different. That's because there's a lot less metal here now than there was a few minutes ago. Huh? So then I'll have like a silhouette of it. And that way I'm not wasting this great big piece of silver. It's fun to saw out words. It's fun to saw out pictures. I've got some portraits of things I do. For Halloween I had Elvira and Morticia, and they're about this big. I had zombies. I had the Wicked Witch and the Flying Monkeys. I have what I call my self-portrait. They're naked ladies, very voluptuous naked ladies, and they're about this big. And I had those on in Tucson in jogs and sold them right out of my ears. Where's your booth? I don't have a booth. Can you sell those? Huh?
Yeah, so you said, do you have money?
Yeah, really. Give me $35 cash. They're yours. Alright. See, I don't have much to hold on to. So it's wanting to get in. And that's the problem if you go with real thin metal too. It'll wanna fold on you. My students are so nice to me. They'll go, I don't like to saw. I'll let you do it.
Can you show me one more time?
Will you show me just one more time how to do that? All right, I think my blade's getting dull because I seem to be going up and down a whole lot more than I'm going forward. These are from Eurotool. They're called Crocodile. They're Swiss. And like I said, they're not the most expensive, but they're not the cheapest either. You don't ever want to try using saw blades in India. They usually break as you're putting them into your saw frame. just eyeball. So if you have a divider out, it's probably not the same all the way around. I don't do anything by measurement. I eyeball everything. You hand me a ruler, I'll screw it in every time.
That's
So
a pretty
see-
Christmas ornament.
That's
Huh?
exactly
Pretty
what I was
Christmas.
thinking.
Yeah, that's, you know, or a really light piece for an earring, or, you know, hang something on the inside, but it wasn't wasted silver. All right, and, you know, so you'll get that in there. You go into smaller pieces, they're just as fun. And it really does become fun once you start really working at it, because all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, all the possibilities of what I can do with this now. I'll look at the puzzles, I'll look at pictures in magazines, and I'm like, I bet I can solve that out. Yeah, I found a whole bunch of silhouettes of like Michael Jackson and Salvador Dali and all these different things, and they're like these black line drawings, and I'm like, ooh, I can solve that out. And if it's really small and it wouldn't sustain itself, you can sweat solder it onto, you know, a flat sheet, and then you've got that image, you know, so you've got layers, and the layers are a lot of fun. I love it. Notice the difference in sound. Okay, this is copper, which is much softer, and it's also 24 gauge instead of 22 gauge, so it's cutting through like butter. But
Are you recommending that the smaller the piece is, the thinner the gauge?
no, thin gauges are really more difficult to do. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to get his little whiskers with this blade, but maybe. Leave that solid, and I'll come back and saw that out. You have to look at your pictures a lot of times so that you don't saw yourself into a hole. Some things you saw out, they lose after a while. You can't tell what it is anymore after you've sawed it out. It needed more detail. You want to really go with black line pictures.
Do you ever go down and saw into the wood?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's.
Oh yeah, sawing into the wood, that's just, bench pins are a consumable. And really, you'll tell because the dust on top changes, the sound changes. It gets a little harder to saw, yeah. I usually, at home, I'll have a book on tape, or I'll be listening to Forensic Files or something, and I'll just get in the Zen and just saw.
See how it could be kind of meditative.
It is. So there's the little there's three little dancing bunnies. There's your bunny.
I did too.
Bunny?
It's a bunny, a dancing bunny.
A dancer around.
No, it's a dancing bunny.
So I live in Choistoy in Blairsville, and it's an Indian word. It's for the land of the dancing rabbit. So I'm going to do
So
something.
she's doing she's
Yeah.
gonna do a landscape
Pretty much.
of dancing bunnies.
And I think I'm going to put mountains behind
So she's like, I'll let you do it. I'm like, no, you go do it. So she did two of them. She did
That's
really
awesome.
well, and she did them quickly. That was really cool. So that's it. All you gotta do is practice and get the right saw blades.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna do more.